Welcome to today's Q&A. We have a lot of great fun questions that came in through the whole comment section this week. Thanks for joining us. This one came in on the video ideas comment section. How did people make their own shots or bullets for their rifles and shotguns? You know, it's a pretty simple. I mean, I can't make them for you here right now. It might make a nice little video, but in the 18th century, making bullets, making shot for guns was something that happened basically all the time. Many people might have purchased their bullets or shot already pre-prepared, but many people made their own. And they had different kinds of bullet molds. Here's a modern bullet mold, but it's similar to some period bullet molds. This one's sort of a scissors effect here, and it would have a single cavity in metal. They'd heat up their lead in a little cast iron pot, or maybe just in a ladle over a nice hot fire. Oh, you only need to get to around 500 or 600 degrees, melts that lead, and then you pour it in here, and you can make a bunch of bullets out of this mold. This is a single mold. There were also gang molds that would make multiple bullets at a time, but the same kind of idea would have multiple cavities, and you'd pour, a dozen bullets at a time. Or there were even more primitive molds where they would take soapstone and carve out the cavity, and you'd have these very primitive sort of soapstone molds that you would cast your bullets. And then there's shot. You mentioned shot and shotguns, and that's a great, even more interesting topic. Instead of using molds to create these little shot pieces, they would actually have molten lead at the top of a tower, maybe 30, 40 feet. I'm not sure how tall shot towers were, but they would have shot towers, and they would drop this molten lead or dribble it, and it would become a sphere on the way down. It would cool into these little shot pieces and then go into, say, a big tub of water at the bottom for it to cool. And that's how they would make these small shot pieces. And it would depend on how you basically dribbled it from the top as to how big that shot was. Great topic. Hopefully we'll be able to make a video on bullet casting and possibly even shot towers sometime in the future for you. Here's a follow-up on the Body Snatchers episode. Maggie Carol Jarbo did such a wonderful job explaining the Body Snatchers thing there in first person, and then later on she talks about it in a third person context. But it's such a one of those quirky little parts of history. And really interesting. And the question here is, what's this about rigging the grave with explosives? Are there still 18th century cemeteries with unstable explosives out there? I don't think it quite works quite like that. She mentioned many different things. You can look this up online. There are several different ways that they would protect these graves from having the bodies taken out of them, removed. And really the key here is that it would only have to protect the grave for 3 or 4 days. And after that time period, the body was too decayed to be of any great use to the folks who wanted to use that for medical experimentation. So there were several different things that they would do in the 18th century. One of them was, she mentioned, putting flint pieces and gunpowder down in up right above the coffin. So the metal of the shovel might make a spark and have it explode. Now, I truly don't think that would work very well at all. Moisture is going to get in there and attack that gunpowder, and it's not going to work very well. It probably wouldn't be very effective for any great period of time. And if that's the kind of explosive somebody's worried about, that's going to deteriorate almost rapidly, and there's nothing unstable about that. So there are other very dangerous things that they would have done to protect those graves. Something would have been something like a cemetery gun. They had those. You might know it as a poacher's gun, and that would be a gun that's fixed in the ground or in a tree with a tripwire. So if somebody came close to it, they would trip over that, and then this gun would just go off. I'm not sure, how often that sort of thing happened, but they certainly had other things like putting rocks in the graves, or in the 19th century they had these iron cages that they would basically put around the grave to make it very, very difficult to dig it up. But again, that only needed to be there for a few days. And then they could take that cage out from around the grave and put it on a different grave. So you can see some of those pictures online. There was a particular late 19th century invention that was something, they called it a cemetery torpedo. And it was an explosive type device that was all encased, and they would put that over the top of the coffin. And if you hit that, or it had like a tripwire, it would explode down in the coffin itself. But again, that's a later 19th century thing. I'm not sure how often this body snatching thing was going on in the late 19th century, but they were still concerned about it as late as the 1880s. Here's a good question. Why don't we see many recipes with chicken? Well, obviously, you can go back in our back catalog and look up something like the fried chicken episode, which obviously was very, very popular. You're probably familiar with that one. There's also a chicken salad episode that came out almost about the same time. So there are definitely some chicken episodes sprinkled around through our back catalog of several hundred cooking episodes. But let me tell you a little bit about chicken in the 18th century. Here's Nicholas Creswell's journal, and this thing is just chock full of good stuff. He's writing. He's somebody from England. He's a young person, maybe 24 at this time. I'm not sure. He's come over to North America to seek his fortune, and he's been in America for maybe a month or two at this point in his journal. He says he breakfasted at Rollins, a public house, but in this country called Ordinaries. And indeed, they have not their name for nothing, for they are ordinary indeed. Have had either bacon or chicken every meal since I came into the country. So they were, nobody wanted to feed him any beef or anything or any pork. Or, well, I guess he had pork here, but bacon and chicken, very, very popular, at least in this circumstance when he comes and visits from England to North America. So yeah, we'll try to get some more chicken episodes in the future. Keep your eye out for that. Okay, here's a great one. How did people shave back then? Okay, so I obviously I need to do a whole shaving episode, but let me show you this here. This is what they would use in the 18th century for shaving. They didn't have all these different kinds of shaving devices like we might have today, electric razors and the kinds with handles and safety razors and straight razors. They just had straight razors. And this is a straight razor that we carry in our store. It's made exactly like an 18th century straight razor would made. There's a bone handle here, and I mean, I can't show it to you very easily, but the blade is actually a forged blade, and it's flat ground instead of the typical blade you're going to find on today's straight razors. If you can find one, they're all hollow ground. So in the 18th century, they had a much more primitive kind of straight razor. Although there is a very, very interesting cutler's book from the mid-18th century. It shows razors being made and what they looked like. But inside that book was a diagram of a sheath, a wooden sheath that would go over the top of this blade and make it into a kind of a safety razor. So they were certainly concerned about getting a better shave in the 18th century, or even a more safer shave. I'm not sure if I've seen anybody reproduce that, but very, very interesting. And this is one of these items that we carry in our store. Last question here today. This one's good. Do you all have a physical store to visit? And yes, we do. Right here in this building. We're in Pierceton, Indiana, in northern part of the state, right here between Fort Wayne and Valparaiso on Highway 30. This tiny little town here. We've got a storefront. We also have our warehouse and where we do all our shipping and answer the telephones and all that kind of stuff. So yes, you can come by and visit the physical store. It's not giant, but occasionally, if you ask the right questions, you might get a tour of the store. Or if you want to see me, sometimes you can ask and the person in the store can find me and I can come out and say, hi. I would love to see you if you're in this area and you want to come by and visit. And if you're not familiar, to this channel and what we do, this channel and all the videos, it's supported mainly by this internet business. We sell 18th and 19th century reproductions, hats, coats, shoes, camping equipment, cooking equipment, all the things you see in like the cooking episodes. Those are all items that we sell in our store. And that's how we get to fund. That's how I get to do fun videos all the time. So If you are interested, make sure to check out our website or a print catalog, or if you're in the area, check out the physical store. So I really want to thank you for all your great support. You're watching our videos, commenting on them. So many of you filled out the survey. Thank you so much for that. And the folks that go to the website and purchase things, that's how we do this. Also, those great folks that you support us on Patreon. And that is an important way to help us continue making videos. So thank you, everyone, for all your amazing support. And thanks for watching.